and welcome to another episode of the Yachting Brief, a podcast where I'm speaking to industry experts about where they've been and where they're heading next. Now, before I introduce my very next guest, and an exciting one at that, I'm going to ask you, do you think your brand is doing enough to stand out in luxury markets? And if you're not sure how that looks, feel free to get in touch with me at hello@studiovoyage.co. Now the boring stuff is out of the way, I can introduce my next guest, Dee Momi. So ranked in the top 1% of the sales professionals in the travel arrangements industry. Dee Momi is the founder of 7 Access, a bespoke service securing premium access to one of the world's most coveted events and crafting unforgettable experiences for ultra-high net worth clients. With a rich background spanning fashion, private roles, and over a decade of chefing experience on board, she is an expert, and we're going to speak all about it. So, Dee, let's give us a brief overview of where this all started.
So, hi, I'm Dee. I'm the founder of 7 Access, and 7 Access actually started completely by accident. So, unlike, I guess, a lot of crew that leave yachting after a number of years, I had no plan. I adopted a stray dog in Antigua, and that combined with a few health things that I had going on at the time, I made the decision to leave after 12 really, really good years on boats and ended up working for a lifestyle management company in London. So I won't say who they are, but they're really, really well known. They've got, I think, over 50 offices worldwide. It was a pretty random application. It seemed like a really good role. So I applied for that job, got the job, and ended up working for them. I really love the role. I love the clients that I had. But in the end, I don't think the culture was the right fit for me. So I ended up moving to a much, much smaller boutique company. And then I set up my own venture with 7 Access.
How long has that been going for now, Dee?
So it will be 3 years in June this year.
Nice. Okay. So you've set up your own business now, you're doing your own thing. And how do you think the fact, you mentioned the cultural fit and where you were at in life, do you think the independence that you had on board and, that led you to start up your own business? That was kind of something that really drove you?
I think so. I mean, I've always been quite entrepreneurial, and anybody who knows yacht crew would say that chefs are a special breed. We kind of do our own thing a little bit. So I already had, I guess, 12 years of, sometimes running my own galley, maybe working with one other chef. So I think I very much, as a lot of yacht crew do, had that get up and go kind of attitude. That was, I guess, championed even more being a chef on boat. So yeah, definitely picking up and just creating my own business wasn't really anything that new. Before I worked on boats, I did actually work in the fashion industry after studying fashion in Manchester for about 8-9 years. So I already had a freelance career. That's something that I built up completely from scratch. And then the global financial crisis hit, and that's when I ended up on boats. So I don't know, maybe I'm a bit of an opportunist. I see something and I just just run off with it. So yeah.
That's where you ended up. And within that, so you'd obviously worked for other people before, like we've said, and what was the gap that you saw? What was the potential that you saw to bring to this industry and, that's led you to this immense career you have now?
I think one of the biggest opportunities I saw working for someone else was how that same service could be delivered on a much more boutique and smaller scale. So obviously when you work on yachts, you see it's quite hard to explain to somebody that hasn't worked in the industry of, I think everywhere else in terms of luxury travel and this kind of world. Personalisation is talked about so much now, but in yachting, it's the bare minimum. Everything is super personalised. The relationship with guests on board is super personalised, and it just becomes part of how you operate, really. So that was the initial opportunity I think I saw to create something of my own. I don't want to have, so many offices worldwide, and I think now in so many industries, offering something much more personal, on a smaller scale, a much more boutique approach is becoming the norm, and it's becoming something that people are actively seeking out. So that was my, I guess, driver from day one. That's something that I wanted to do. So that was the very beginning of thinking, okay, I can offer something different here, and really something for clients to just have so much more fun with what they're doing, whether it's access to certain events or getting special behind the scenes access somewhere. I just felt like there was a lot more that I could do if I had my own setup, if I was running my own business, really.
How's that gone? So are you primarily working within the yachting space at the moment, or are you still working, fingers in all pies? Where are you at with that?
So the business actually started working with yacht brokers and a couple of big American-based tour operators, and that was purely through connection. So when I was working for my old company, a few people that I knew in the yachting industry knew what I was doing, and they started asking, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And it kind of overlapped, I guess, with the start of my business. So it really started with yacht brokers and travel designers, tour operators, and then we moved into working with private clients. But as you know, with high net worth clients, it's a lot of things are based on personal referrals. And it's kind of gone from starting with yacht brokers and travel designers to working with private clients, to working with their PAs. And even now we work with brands, even PR agencies as well.
Yeah. I think it's definitely moving into that world. And you mentioned the word boutique before, but I think what also complements it nicely is also the word like authenticity. Like we're living in an age, and I'm finding this, that, AI is taking over and it's this obsession. But I think no matter, you know, what class you're in, what experience you want, people still want to deal with people. And it's about who they can go to for that. And like you say, the referrals come when you do your job properly and you understand your audience. And it's just like that roll on effect from that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think sometimes you'll see trends going completely in one way, and inevitably they will always work their way back. But yeah, I'm, like I said, I'm not interested in scaling my business to the point where I have so many global offices, because I think you lose that touch, you lose that personalization. There's only so many clients and members that you can take care of if you have a certain size team. And, even if you have like a small ratio of clients to people like myself, like a client manager, still I feel like that boutique feeling and that personalization is lost to a certain
Yeah.
degree.
And it's how you go about that. Like I've worked for companies where you're sending out 15,000 email campaigns or something absurd. And like right now I'm working for a really small yacht agency, well, a consultancy, 25 years. And we discussed about, a marketing plan, how we're going to move it forward, what we're going to do. And he's like, oh, we can start an email campaign. And I was like, no, I was like, we absolutely won't. Please, let's not send a single email out. I was like, this is so personalized. We need to, look who we're, these clients are, and really, invest the time, like you say, in having those handful of clients that you almost nurture and just, they become part of your career almost, because you've probably, this particular company I'm working for, they've ran for 25 years. The people they had at the start, it's their children now. And I just think that's
Yeah.
a really lovely part of the industry that I really enjoy. So I can really, relate to you when you're saying about make it boutique, make it authentic, like the real prestige of yachting. I'm quite like, I hold on to that quite a lot. Like I like that part of it.
Yeah, I think email has its place. I think it depends on who you're speaking to, really. And again, that's where the personalization comes in. And it's funny because doing things like this is completely out of my comfort zone. But at the same time, I understand the need for people to want to connect with each other. And especially with the kind of thing that we do, it's unless somebody really knows you and you know them, it's difficult to give somebody something that's ultra personalized, because if you don't get to know each other, how do you know what to suggest? How do you know anything about how their lifestyle runs? Just even down to basic likes and dislikes. And obviously that relationship is built out over time, but it's not something you can do by just sending emails. We have to show up in all sorts of ways now, whether it's video or podcasts or, WhatsApp even. That's huge for us. That's something that we use all the time, like many businesses. So yeah, things are changing.
Massively. And so you just mentioned there about getting to know your clients, and like what's almost I said everything's different and every scenario is different, but what's your kind of procedure in getting to know them? Do you sit with them personally, face to face? Is it, you say you mentioned do it over WhatsApp, but what's like the usual trend for you? How are you getting to know your clients?
Well, most of the clients that we've acquired have been through personal referrals. So I think that really helps, because then there's a common bridge that's already built there. The person that's introducing us, they trust us. Obviously, they have a history with whoever it is that they're referring and introducing. So a lot of that work is already done, and having that common bridge immediately, I think, builds trust. It's not something that I think I set out to, I guess, push in the beginning, but it's just the way that things have naturally happened, and I have no complaints. I think it's the best way to get new business. It definitely helps in a lot of different areas, but I think initially in terms of getting to know somebody, and of course that happens over, a period of time, having personal referrals sent to us and people being introduced definitely helps that part of the process for sure.
Yeah, and you must also feel in yourself, a sense of accomplishment to know that you've been referred as well, because that's a real warrant to your work and the quality of work that you're doing. I think, we're dealing with these clients whereby their standards are so high. So to be given that referral is like a real credit to your work. So fair play if that's how you're getting all your work in. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it doesn't hurt to have had the yachting background, that's for sure, because you already have an inbuilt system, I guess, as previous crew of how to deal with those referrals when you get them, because it's one thing getting a referral, but then also in another sense, there's a lot more pressure, because if somebody's introducing somebody to you, the bar is set a lot higher. So you have a lot more to prove, but it's all well getting that referral and getting that business, but it's having those people come back. I know it sounds really cliched. In some senses, you do have a lot more to prove in those scenarios.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think as well, like you think about it in terms of if they were a repeat charter guest, there's always that expectation to do better. So why would it be any different if it's a friend or, they're coming back for their second holiday, their third holiday?
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah. But sometimes, we've all got that repeat charter guest that you don't want to come back, but you've also got those lovely ones that are really, really nice, and you just can't wait for the next season to start for them to come back and their entire family come on. And I guess it leads me on to like, what are some of the requests that you've had where you've just thought, either when you were on board or in 7 Access, where you just thought, oh my God, how am I going to do this?
I've never really had that in my business. Does that make
Everything
me
just
sound
goes, brilliant, I'm fine. You probably just thrive off it and you're like, not an obstacle.
It's weird because I feel like I feel, I don't know, maybe less pressure with this business, because part of the reason I say that is because if somebody reaches out with something that seems impossible, let's say, we have quite a good network of on the ground partners wherever we operate. So we have access to local knowledge, and having that support, I think, really makes a huge difference. So if somebody reaches out with something and it's seemingly impossible, there's always someone that I know that will support us, because, as much as people can say, oh, we operate everywhere, unless you have established relationships in those places or you travel to those places frequently, that's impossible. So you do have to rely on those people to back you up and have a good relationship with them. So I definitely actually felt more pressure being a chef in the galley when things are changing at the last minute. So this is
probably set you up for a really good run. Yeah, that's so funny, isn't it? Because you just think maybe it's your mindset of now you're out of the galley, like I can accomplish anything. I've just done 12 years in a galley. I am fine.
Yeah, maybe. I'd agree to that. The benefit of hindsight.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing whilst you're amongst it. And in terms of who you're currently, dealing with, and obviously we won't go into details of names and things like that, but what are like the current trends that you're dealing with? Is it sustainable travel? Are they just going for their mini breaks? Is it younger people? Like, what are these things that you're seeing that's changed in the industry?
So a real mix. Obviously, a hyper personalisation that you touched on earlier is a big one. But that, again, it just comes with the territory. Everything that we put together is bespoke. So that's just the way that we work. I understand that's not how a lot of luxury travel companies work. They usually have set itineraries and certain things that you can swap in and out. But I'd say we're very different to that. Everything that we do from the beginning is bespoke, and that wasn't set up that way to follow a trend. It's just how we, once you've been in yachting for 12 years, you don't really know any different after that. So that's definitely a big trend that I think is becoming much more mainstream. Sustainability is huge in yachting and in luxury travel in general. I'm finding there's quite a lot more clients that are being a little bit more conscious about the way that they're traveling. So there's been like this, I guess, resurgence in opulent train journeys. That's becoming quite a big thing too. So, and I guess the experiences around that as well, obviously dining experiences, there's a history kind of element in there too, bit of storytelling. We're finding a lot more clients are maybe wanting to go off the beaten path a lot more as well and travel to remote destinations. So whether it's like a super luxury private island kind of retreat, or doing something that's maybe a bit more rooted in culture, a bit more adventure focused. It could be at any end of the scale, but we're finding a lot more of that as well. I don't know if it's clients that have maybe gone to the same sorts of places for years and then they want to maybe do something different. So that's definitely becoming a lot more apparent. We've been involved in quite a lot of multi-generational trips as well. So nice. I'm finding that's becoming quite popular as well. So whether somebody's celebrating quite a big milestone or they just don't maybe get the opportunity to connect with their family throughout the year and they want to plan something special. So whether they want to do a villa retreat, have some experiences in there, do some really, really nice dinners, that's becoming quite big. And then the other thing I think closely connected to that is not just on a personal level, but commercially as well. We're seeing quite a lot of businesses, brands also wanting to do something special for their clients. It's an opportunity for them to create some content in those trips, but it's also a chance for them to take away maybe some of their most valued clients. And even in that space, it's the competition to impress clients and do something special and quite unique for them is also becoming much more common that I'm seeing.
Nice. So when you talk about brands, is that in terms of like, if they're collaborating with brands necessarily, is that as in like an influencery type trip, or is that not come into it? Is that not the element? Or it is?
There has been elements of that. So we've done some trips with like larger group trips with brands and businesses. So they could be maybe taking their clients away for like an incentive trip. But something really exciting that we're working on at the moment is for the Monaco Grand Prix. So I can't say who, but it is a global luxury brand, and they're taking away quite a large group of their clients, and there are some influencers involved in there as well. So we're working on some special curated dinners for them. We'll have after parties throughout the weekend. There's also going to be some like behind the scenes kind of moments in some of Monaco's legendary venues that aren't that easy to kind of access. So they'll have all these special experiences going on, supercar drives, all of this kind of thing. But it's an opportunity for them to create some content around their brand, but also take their clients to, something that is, I guess, in a once in a lifetime opportunity with the Grand Prix going on.
How fun is it that you get to be part of that? I think my like event planning streak back in the day would just be losing my mind at the option of that. I always worked with a senior, she's actually like my best friend now. And when we did events at the particular job I was in, she was events manager. I did design at that place. And we'd always be like, right, throw every single idea in the bucket that we possibly can throw at this. And at the time we were only like launching houses, so it wasn't, but the stuff we did was just loads of random things. And we'd always have to throw them into a bucket first and then be like, okay, what's achievable in the time frame, manage our expectations, manage our clients. And I just feel like your job is like that, but on steroids.
It is really, really fun. I mean, I do have to bring myself a bit down to earth with spreadsheets and budgets. So I do have to be reined in a little bit. Spreadsheets are not my strong point, but I'm getting really good at those. Actually, I'm quite impressed with my newly found spreadsheet skills. But no, it's, I think, for me, I've always had really creative careers as well. I started off in fashion and then I moved on to yachts as a chef. And as you know, you're changing the menu every single day, you're doing something new every day. And as much as there are the boring jobs that everybody has with their business, I do get to be really, really creative with this business and with this role as well. So it fulfills that part of what I really, really enjoy doing.
Yeah, it ticks the boxes. And is it just you at the moment, Dee? Like obviously you've spoke about these connections you have globally that help you out do these trips, but are you taking this entire workload on yourself, and are you able to bounce ideas off anyone? Like how does that structure look for you?
Yeah, no, I do have a really small team. There are 3 others, so we do work together, but I am more the client-facing person at the moment. I think that's really important in the beginning, especially when you're building your own business, and if if there's the room to do that, to build that relationship initially with clients and have that support in the background. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just important, like I mentioned, to like be able to bounce ideas off someone, especially when you say you've got such a creative mind and you almost, I know that I'm guilty of this. You come up with these ideas and you go down one long line and then you might
yeah,
voice it to someone and say, have you thought about this? And then you can go down another long line and you just keep
yeah.
going and going and going.
No,
I
we
think that's
definitely
when,
brainstorm those options, and it's having the creative ideas, but then it's also working out logistics and timings, the same as you would do on board, I guess, for guest arrivals and their charters, and just make sure that everything ties in really nicely together, in terms of their time on board and what they're doing, and depending on the makeup of the group. So we'll brainstorm that internally, we'll come up with ideas and quotes and options, but a lot of the time, if we're not working directly with a private client, we might be working with some of their team or with the businesses. We'll always be working with somebody else to make sure that what we're doing is viable, it fits what they want, it fits their budget, their intentions for the experience or the trip that they're going on. So there's a lot of communication that happens back and forth throughout the
yeah,
process.
and absolutely that element of just being adaptable, because essentially we both know, the whole industry knows, that none of these things technically go to plan and you're like a duck on water and everything looks clean and smooth and there's an operation in the background that's going, oh,
Yeah.
what have we got to do? But I guess that's what we thrive from, isn't it? That's what led us into the industry and that's where we're at now. Like, you're just fighting fires but making it look so glamorous from the outside.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the nature of travel anyway. I mean, there's so much that you can control and there's, a little bit that you can't. And that's just the way it goes. But it's all, like you said, being prepared and having backup plans and having people that can support you and teams on the ground and that kind of thing. So yeah.
No, it's really, really good. And what has been a career highlight? Like, obviously driving your own business is so hard. And like I recently posted about, you've got your head down, you've got your blinkers on, and you can ignore all this noise that's going on around you. But actually, when you take a step back, you've probably achieved so much, like what you're going to do at Monaco, for instance. I can't wait for that to happen. But, what's
Yeah.
been a real career highlight for you?
I don't think I can really pinpoint anything in particular. I'd say
Modesty is hitting here. I can see you're like, I don't want to say it.
I don't think I can pinpoint anything, to be honest. I think it's like you said, the first 2 to 3 years, or maybe 2 to 5 years of any business is really, really tough. There's a lot that goes on in the background. And I think, for the first, I'd say 9 months, it was head down, build whatever it is that you're offering and just connect with as many people as possible. I think I'm kind of seeing the results of that, in the last 2 years. So I think the biggest highlight for me really is what we touched on earlier, is having referrals, having people reach out and say, oh, so and so recommended you, can you please help me with this? The space is so competitive. There's actually so many companies like mine who maybe are slightly different, who maybe offer something slightly different. But to have somebody reach out to you and say, can you help me with this? So and so was talking about you. That to me is a big, big deal.
Yeah. Says you're doing something right. Well done. Look,
I
you're like, I
try.
can't
I
take
try.
this. Yeah, I hope that you watch this episode back as well when I send it to you and you look and you're like, look what I've achieved. Because I think it's
No,
really
I
easy.
definitely, I do feel that. And I know what you mean. You can and have your blinkers on sometimes. And especially in the middle of the season when you're really, really busy and then you kind of breathe that sigh of relief at the end of it. It's really not lost on me at all. And I am one of those people that does take time to reflect throughout. So I don't kind of get caught up in what I'm doing and lose sight of that. That's just how I am as a person. And I think it's important to operate that way. Yeah.
And so you mentioned there your season as well. Like, when is the busiest time for Seven Access, or does it just feel like a 24-hour phone buzzing exercise?
So last year, the season for us, because we operate pretty much everywhere, but most of the work that we do is around the Med. And I'd say our season started probably in February last year and it ended in November. So yeah.
Big stint. And I guess as well, the more this grows into what it will become, no doubt amazing, the longer those stints will become, because a Christmas trip will be on the lineup, then a New Year trip will be up on the
Yeah.
lineup.
Although this year hasn't been as crazy as last year so far. It's kind of been a bit more like the year before. we're always busy doing something, but I'd say it started, you really notice it around March. It's quite normal. And then, just the requests that you're getting change year on year as well. And I think clients become a little bit more attuned to maybe how far in advance they need to plan something. So there's other variables that I think play into that.
No, and what was it about last year that you think was so busy, or was it just timings and just the way it was?
I'm not sure if it was a surge in getting new clients, maybe might have had something to do with it. Maybe some shorter lead time for certain trips as well. There was a few of those. And then yes, there was some planning going on for Christmas trips, but then towards the end of last year there was also pre-planning happening for this season. So yeah, real mixed bag. I think again, you don't know what's gonna happen. So
You
just
don't
always
know
on
what's
your
going to
toes
hit
to
and when it's going to hit.
see what comes out of the bag really.
I actually missed a question and I'll slot it in somewhere else or we'll leave it here, whatever we do with it. But, you mentioned about, the personalization that you're able to bring and you saw what was going on board. Did you ever feel like what was happening on board due to time restraints, that you never really got an opportunity to do it?
What's really funny is when I first started my business and I just used to think there's so much potential in yachting and to really, really elevate some of the experiences on board. And, I've been to Monaco Yacht Show so many times and I've spoken to so many brokers, I've spoken to quite a few captains, a few interior crew as well. And I don't know if some people might not like me saying this, but I do feel like the yachting industry to some extent is still stuck in the past a little bit. Not everybody, but I feel like it moves in some ways a lot slower than other industries and part of the rest of the world. And I feel like there's still some resistance to doing things differently, entertaining new ideas. And I understand why. I do understand why. But I think there's huge potential. But it's talking to the right people who are open to implementing that.
Yeah, and you do think that's down to like owners, captains, reps? Like, who is that down to? Because I am 100% on board with you. I did a much shorter stint than you, but I just thought there was so much opportunity to really, go one step above.
Who is in contact with that client or with the broker and involved in the planning stages, because like you said, a lot of that stuff you can't just, the guests are already there and then you're going, oh, it's somebody's birthday in 2 days time and we could have done this because we found out that they like X, Y, and Z. And then it's like a bit of a scramble to make it happen. But I think it depends on who's involved in those conversations from the very, very beginning. And, if a broker's bringing you a client, it's their client. And understandably, they want to maintain that relationship with them. But it's who is involved in that conversation from the beginning and being open to that. And I understand with brokers, they have their job to do. They're really, really busy. And it's, I think maybe primarily for them, it's organising the vessel and getting that confirmed rather than all these other details that, a lot of the time they're maybe not involved in. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one because there's definitely potential there. There's a lot of potential there, but it's just speaking to the right people that are open to it. Again, it's another very, very competitive industry. So it's all about standing out. You see so many more yachts now who are open to social media and filming content and that kind of thing. I think it just maybe takes some time to think about how to do things differently or how to elevate something.
Yeah, and what is your opinion on social media in the industry? How do you feel about it?
Again, I think it's all in the way that it's executed. Definitely
Tick,
for charter. Definitely for
tick.
charter
Good
yachts,
answer.
I think it's plus. It's all up to, it's the captain's decision at the end of the day, and the owners, of course, if they're happy for that exposure. And there's got to be clear guidelines as to what can and can't happen and what can and can't be captured in terms of content. But it's the way that the world runs now is social media and being online, and that drives a lot. Like there's still people out there that have the opinion that you cannot get business through Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn. And so many of our biggest budgets and biggest clients have actually come through some of those avenues. So
Yeah. I
it's
suppose
just a
it's
mindset.
what for me, it's how you put it out, where you put it out, and who you're putting it out to. Like, which is what
Definitely.
you
I think the
summarized. It's just how
messaging
you're
has to be
doing it.
very, very clear. And
Yeah.
that comes from, your captain or whoever's in charge of, I guess, communicating that. It has to be very, very clear what you're doing and there has to be a plan behind it for sure.
And do you think that's something that, because of your time in the industry as well, that you've kind of adopted, this understanding of who you're talking to in seven axis, like you know how you're speaking to these people, you know how you're communicating. And I think, is that something that you have a really good grasp of?
Yeah, and I think it's really funny being on boats because there was no plan for my business when I worked on boats. And, as you probably know as well, that there's so much conversation between crew of, I'm thinking of going home and what am I going to do after yachting? And there's nothing like this at home. It's not something that I can just carry on, especially for women. And especially, I hate to say it, but women of a certain age, because it's not the same for us in the industry. And I don't know if there's something missing with me, but I just didn't really think about that. I just thought, okay, well, I've rescued a dog from Antigua and I'm having some health issues, so I'm going to go home now. Bye. And then it just all kind of fell into place. But I don't know if that's just me as a person, that I don't stress about things like that. And I know if I'm really determined to do something, the opportunity will just present itself if I'm working hard enough and I'm, aligned with whatever it is that I think like I worked in the industry on and off for 12 years. I did have a couple of breaks in that time for various reasons, but I don't think you realize at the time exactly what you're absorbing. And I think because I didn't have this plan of when I leave, this is what I want to do. So I was kind of making mental notes of everything. But I think when you leave, you realize the wealth of knowledge that you have. And so I think when it came to building my business, it was already built in of, you're dealing with a certain type of client. And there are very rare instances anywhere in the world that you actually get the opportunity to do that. So, you could be working in 5-star hotels, for example, where you maybe pick up on how to deal with certain clients, but I don't think anywhere that I can think of is on the same level as working on yachts, because you really do get to know people, and it's more than just get to know people. Like you said, you have return charter guests, and I think yachts for a lot of people is a bit of a safe space. There's not many places left like that in the world unless it's like a remote destination. So there's something really, really special. It's a special environment. You do really, really get to know people. And I don't think it's until you build something like the company that I've built that you realize how much just innate knowledge that you have about something.
Yeah, it's just there because you've been in it for so long. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
No, you summarized that really nicely. Actually, I was listening thinking,
I remembered.
No,
The initial question.
no, not at all. No, I think once that knowledge is, that inherent knowledge and that understanding of who you're dealing with, I think a lot of things just start to slot into place. I find that a lot when I'm doing brand for people. I'll kind of talk to them about, not even in yachting, other projects, and I'm like, okay, so like who is it? And these are people that are so passionate about their industries. Like it could be coffee, it could be like yoga. I've done all these Pilates.
Yeah.
And then when you actually ask them about their person, we call it like a customer profile. You go into it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I didn't think about that." Whereas because you've been immersed in it for so long, it's just so natural. And I think that's the delivery is obviously standing out.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know a lot of people talk about it when they say starting your own business, you have to understand your customer. Again, it sounds really cliched, but
no, it's basically the basics, isn't it?
Building something and you don't understand who it's for, and like really understand who it's for, and you don't spend time with them, you don't talk to them, like what, who are they? What do they do? Do they live for? What is their thing? Those are things that you do need to find out. So I guess in one weird way, I've kind of done it in reverse, where I've gotten to know that type of person, and then here we are.
Well, it's obviously not done you any bad because you've done quite well out of it. So what's next for 7 Access? What are you up to?
So we're actually working on a new type of membership. So we're working on launching that soon. And if anyone does want to learn more about it, or they want to sign up to the waitlist, you can go to our website, which is 7access.com. And if you scroll down to membership, there's a waitlist that you can join. So we're still, to be completely honest, figuring out exactly how we're going to deliver that new kind of membership. I've got a few ideas. There's a few things that we're working on in the background, but I would say aside from working on client trips and experiences, that's the main thing that we're doing.
Oh, well, I'll link it all below, and I'll link your details. And if anyone wants to find you, Dee, where can they find you?
So you can find us on Instagram, and it's 7Access. I'm also quite active-ish on LinkedIn. I'm trying to be. And obviously under my name.
It's a full-time job in itself.
It really is. It's coming up with the ideas and writing as well. So under my name, Dee Momi, I don't think there's too many of us on LinkedIn. And then my business has a company page on LinkedIn as well, which is 7Access.
Well, thank you so much. Honestly, Dee, it's been so great to hear about what you're up to at 7Access and to just hear like the understanding that you have of your business. And, it's really refreshing that, someone in this industry, there's plenty of us, but it's about getting that word out there of, understand who you're speaking to and, do the job properly and try and elevate this industry. So it's been really, really lovely speaking to you.
Thank you so much, Kate. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome, and stay in touch. So I'm going to sign that off with Dee, and thank you all for listening. And if you have any questions or you want to get in touch with either of us, I'll leave the details below. Thank you very much. Okay.